guys, so finally we have some actually exciting news. There is actually a bunch of new information. Now, I've already made a video like this years ago in regards to what is going on around Northrend after our campaign, after Wrath of the Lich King, but at the time that really was mostly speculation based on a few hints that were thrown our way, but there was really nothing concrete. However, now a book called Exploring Azeroth Northrend was released that literally gave us a ton of updates on what is actually going on around the continent, and there are some really interesting and intriguing news. From the updates on Yogg-Saron, Ulduar, to the Scourge still being active, to certain places being abandoned, missing Titan Watchers, possible new Dwarven race, and a bunch of other information. So what is all this new stuff and what is going on around in Northrend? Just a quick before we get into the video, I'd like to show you guys this video sponsored, the Ridge Wallet. If you guys are using a really bulky wallet, check out Ridge. I've been using it for 2 years. It is literally the only wallet that I've used. Now, additionally, they started creating key cases as well, and it really matches the wallet at the same time. Now, best of all, until December 22nd, if you use my link in the description, you can get up to 40% off. So it's never really been a better time to get your Ridge Wallet. Check out my link in the description below and use code DORON. So, while there's definitely a lot of new info, and there really are a lot of bits and pieces that updated, unfortunately there aren't any crazy, like, mind-blowing changes outside of the old god stuff and some Titan info, as in they're not really mentioning what is going on with the Horde or the Alliance and how different Northrend really is, but they do kinda mention some things in the book. So, while there isn't any explicit information, as far as we know, the Horde and the Alliance still maintain an obvious presence in Northrend. There's like a skeleton crew type thing there, and the expeditions are still active, but really it is mainly a garrison type thing, and it is definitely not as it was in the past where we had the entire Horde of the Alliance army there, which of course makes sense. I mean, we were fighting the Lich King. I really doubt the Horde and the Alliance are just going to abandon those bases, seeing how developed some of them are. They could literally be like full-on cities. However, some of the more temporary camps and outposts have actually been abandoned, as was confirmed in the book. For example, if you may remember the Grom Arch crash site, it has literally been completely abandoned, which honestly makes sense, as this was literally like a temporary base built around a crashed Zeppelin, so naturally they aren't going to continue living there for like 15 years plus, and the Storm Peaks are a crazy unfavorable climate as is for any sort of settlement, which is, when you think about it, why most major outposts are usually in the southern part of the continent, or where the climate is at least a tad bit pleasant. This really is a minor bit of information, but there are some other quite more interesting hints. We have received an update on the Scourge, and despite the fact that the Lich King is no more, the Jailer has been defeated, that entire war is just completely over, and there is no central figure, the Scourge is actually still active and is quite a threat in Northrend, which in my opinion is kind of surprising. I honestly expected him at this point, after the time skip and after all this destruction, that they would be next to relevant. We don't really know who leads them exactly, but it is likely that the local commanders and the more intelligent undead officers just took charge and are like independent warbands instead of servants of the Lich King, so all of them are just kind of doing their own thing most likely. For example, we received a lot of information on the Horde's allies, the taunka, the Tauren cousins. As you may remember, the taunka live village in the Borean Tundra, well, it is still completely overrun by the Scourge, and apparently the taunka have so many bad memories associated with the place that they don't really plan to reconquer it and to rebuild their village and to re-establish their presence. Additionally, the former capital of the taunka, the Ice Mist village, is also still under Scourge control, which obviously shows us just how strong the Scourge is. I mean, the taunka are Horde allies, yet the Horde is unable to defeat them and to clear out this village, despite the Scourge being significantly weakened, defeated since the Wrath of the Lich King, and like 15 years have passed and they're still controlling the Ice Mist village. Furthermore, in regards to the taunka, the Camp Onyqua, their settlement in Grizzly Hills, has greatly expanded, and it was revealed in the book that a lot of refugees from the other Scourge overrun villages have now settled in this camp, meaning that this is kind of like their makeshift capital. It could become a future center of taunka culture, but officially they still don't have a capital. Interestingly enough, the taunka also have seemingly completely isolated themselves from all outsiders, and this seems kinda like a strict policy, so right now they're only interacting with themselves and the Horde that are their allies that provide them with crucial assistance, but they're not talking to anyone else. So overall, from the book, we got a ton of taunka updates if you're really interested in their future. Now, in regards to some more interesting things that are going around in Northrend, remember the huge Scourge necropolis in Zul'Drak? Well, something really strange happened to it after the war against the Jailer, so in the recent times. Right now, the entire place is literally, for some reason, just a ghost town, and it is completely abandoned. Like, there are literally no living beings, nor the undead. It's like some sort of a force just came in and just got rid of everyone, and there is like no one there. The Bronzebeard brothers are investigating what this influence could be, and they're kind of wondering whether this party is friendly or not, seeing that it got rid of the Scourge as well. But right now, at this point, nothing is known. It is entirely possible that this could be like some third party, some mysterious force that has its own agenda that we might learn about in the future. On the other hand, we received new lore on the weapon called Mitrios, which was the Lich King fight drop. Apparently, this was a 100-year-old axe that a dwarf received when they had ventured to Northrend in some unknown expedition, and it was built by their Frostborn cousins, the Ice Dwarves that you might remember. Then it was returned to Ironforge, and over time the origin was forgotten, and it became a heirloom of the Bronzebeards. Then Muradin carried it, and he lost it during the Northern expedition. As you may remember, there was a whole storyline where the dwarves had allied themselves to the Ice Dwarves, despite no common origin as far as they really know anything about it, but I'm guessing that might change in the near future. Well, now the king of the Frostborn had invited the Bronzebeard brothers to discuss the origin of the axe, and they had a great time of bonding, which is a huge hint that we could be receiving an Ice Dwarf customization or an Ice Dwarf allied race. If you want more detailed info on this, I have an entire video on the topic that covers everything in great detail. However, the Frostdwarves were invited to Ironforge to settle there and not just visit, meaning that these guys might just be quite relevant in the very near future. Now, the most interesting hint, and the one that is most relevant to Dragonflight, is in regards to the old god Yogg-Saron, which is actually a huge confirmation. I, once again, have an entire video on this if you want a really detailed info, but essentially, it boils down to, it was confirmed that Yogg-Saron was defeated, but that he was only contained. This is essentially a solid confirmation that he is alive, whatever alive means in old god terms. It is said that his madness continues, and that it not only haunts the halls of Ulduar, but it also haunts all of Northrend. Now, this in itself would not really be that big of a deal if Blizzard didn't literally confirm that Yogg-Saron had corrupted Yogg-Saron and turned him into the monstrosity that he was, and that is, as you may know, super relevant to the current Dragonflight storyline. We don't really know what Yogg-Saron is up to in Northrend, but it is likely that we might be doing something with him in the very near future. Now, in regards to other a bit more random information, the Ebonblade Death Knights are still active around Northrend. It is confirmed that they fully control the Shadow Vault in Northern Icecrown, and it is their base of operations, and they have cleared the Scourge presence from the surrounding area. On the other side, and even more interesting bit of information, is that the gigantic Titan Watcher that you may remember that walks on the path of the Titans in Dragonblight is actually missing, the guy called Jotun. We have information from the book where after the war against the Jailer, Magni wanted to meet this massive Titan Watcher, but he was actually nowhere to be found, and that's pretty telling as, you know, this guy is quite easy to spot. He's a pretty big guy. They have been wondering whether he moved to Storm Peaks, and then they visited Storm Peaks, they visited Thorim, the Keeper, that obviously has a lot more information than the regular guy, and he essentially said he doesn't know where the Titan Watcher is. Now, seeing how important the Titan Keepers, the Watchers, the Titan presence overall is in Dragonflight, it could be possible that he might have moved somewhere to the Dragon Isles, as their kind is going to definitely be really relevant in the new expansion. However, we still don't really know anything, and his NPC has not been data mined in the new expansion, so really, at this point, this is a dead end. Seeing that they decided to write an entire story about the search for this Titanic Watcher, I'm guessing they're planning to include him into something. Nonetheless, with how big this guy is, I doubt he could just be hiding somewhere without anyone like spotting him or seeing him or knowing anything about where he has been going. So overall, there isn't a crazy amount of like continent reshaping information, but Northrend is 100% evolving, as after all like 15 or more years have passed now with the time skip, so obviously it isn't going to be the same. The most important bit of information is that Yogg-Saron still haunts the continent, and the Scourge, despite the defeat of the Lich King and the Jailer, is still active and is still a pretty big threat. So despite us defeating all these foes and apparently winning, Northrend is still a pretty damn treacherous place and a really dangerous place to be around. Thank you for watching. Check out how Blizzard plans to make up for the Shadowlands storyline with the Level 5 by clicking on the screen, and check out Doronsmovies Academy for videos on real world history. See you next time.